Coming soon to a TV screen near you, artists and linguists working across disciplines to preserve both Louisiana mythology and the languages in which it was expressed. Practice and more practice to make perfect, celebrating a lifetime devoted to visions of the American West. And the Art Deco panache of a bygone era shines again at Alexandria's Bentley Hotel. That's all about to happen on Art Rocks.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.
Hello, I'm James Fox Smith, publisher of Country Roads Magazine, back with another episode of Art Rocks. I recently met with Louisiana artist Jonathan Meyer and actor-musician, cultural activist Clif St. Laurent. Working with poet-writer Beverly Matherne, they have collaborated to create the Mythologies Louisianaises, a multidisciplinary art project that explores the vital connections between Louisiana mythology, storytelling, and the languages in which those stories are shared. Connecting artwork by contemporary artists with explanatory text in French, English, and the once widely spoken Louisiana Creole language known as Kouri-Vini, their goal is to remind us that when it comes to understanding our state's rich culture, you cannot separate the story from the language in which it was told. Jonathan, Clif, welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Jonathan, tell us how Mythologies Louisianaises came about originally.
So Mythologies Louisianaises came about by just me wanting to give back to a community that has sort of helped me, but also a community that I think connected to cultures that I was connected to as well, but were distanced by them because of either some sort of Americanization or moving away at some point in time. And so it's a way for all of us to sort of reconnect to this culture that is in our past and our heritage and ancestry and such.
Absolutely. How did you choose the artists whose work appears in Mythologies Louisianaises?
So I chose artists that were decidedly working in more illustrative styles, but also some who I had seen like maybe create some monsters or some really playful imagery and such, but also, you know, the writers and the other people, and like Clif, translators and cultural activists who were wanting to work with me on something like this. Just people who were passionate about like reconnecting.
Obviously. Well, Louisiana obviously is a place where the supernatural runs deep, right? And I wonder if you could talk a little about the connections between the state's mythology and the work made by artists that illustrates it that have that connection to Louisiana.
Right, so everybody knows about the rougarou or the loup-garou. It'll nip at your heels at night if you go out into places that you're not supposed to, as you're told as a kid, right? Out in the swamps and whatnot. One artist in particular, Demon Matsuo, his sort of connection to the culture as growing up in Morgan City was his dad would actually play the loup-garou and scare the bejesus out of all of his kids and whatnot. So, but anyway, that's one of the things that like sort of connects Demon to this as well, as like his dad was like the folklore legend.
So it's not just a story, it's truly a part of his lived experience and history as well.
Right.
You can't separate those two things, right? As an artist, how do you think that Louisiana's sort of unique mix of language has affected and continues to affect its artistic output?
I think the language helps us sort of define like an identity and a connection to this place. And so there's a lot of people that actually make work about this place, and so they use the stories and experiences that they've had and whatnot. And also we find a lot of different facets of people's I guess personalities, and the facets in their creativity I think stem from these different languages as well.
Absolutely. Clif, I wanted to ask you, Kouri-Vini, the original Louisiana Creole, what are its origins? Who was speaking it or is speaking it today? And also, people were speaking it before the Acadians even arrived here, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So Kouri-Vini, most popularly known as Louisiana Creole, was created by the slaves who were brought to Louisiana by their French captors. And so it finds its origins right here in Louisiana from languages such as Wolof, West African languages. And so what happened was it started off as what's known as a pidgin in the linguistic field. And a pidgin is a trade language that is created by two or more groups not speaking the same language for the purpose of commerce and business. And so all of these different West African tribes having to be forced to work together in the same place, not speaking the same language, they used the language that they had in common, which was French, and they created this, and this turned into something beautiful. They initially were speaking it alone, but not very many generations later, as you know, most African slaves were plantation owners' children were being raised by them, so their children started speaking them as well. So for that, you have a lot of people who self-identify as white today who speak Creole as well.
So how widely spoken is Kouri-Vini now, and where did you learn it?
Most of the 22 parish region where Louisiana French is spoken, you can find Creole speakers as well. We estimate about 10,000 people. I taught myself both French and Louisiana Creole and Kouri-Vini. And I did that by what little resources were available at the time when I was a teenager. It's been lost in my family for a while, and like you said, I wanted to reconnect to that part of our culture and heritage.
So ultimately, what is the goal of this multimedia process, this work that you've put together?
So the goal, at least for me, the goal is to show that we can create a better community by collaborating and also learning other languages that either are heritage languages or languages of friends that have become maybe family or whatnot after these projects. So you get really close with the people that you work with, that you collaborate with on things that you're passionate about. So
the goal for me is preserving culture through art and preserving language through the culture and the art. So culture and the language is everything. And the reason we know the story so well, the languages that they were told to us in were French, they were Kouri-Vini. So if we can reconnect the language through means of art and bring that component back into the culture. We have the food, we got the music. Louisiana is known for that. But if we can reconnect the language with the stories, yeah, we'll be good.
So I believe you guys have a little treat for us now, which is to speak a little bit of a Louisiana myth that a lot of people are going to be familiar with, but do so both in French and in Kouri-Vini, so we can get a taste of really how this was originally.
So we're going to read part of Shawigaru. So that was written by Beverly Matherne and inspired by this work that's actually behind us, the Prenez garde au Shawigaru by Simon Allemand. So that is beware of the werecoon. So if you don't know it, you will know it after today. You want to read in Kouri-Vini?
Yeah, sure. So here's the Kouri-Vini translation. La laine frappe mon duvet, met comme des blooms dans mon yeux noir. Mon met mon nez d'oreiller, gorgé comme du miel, jusqu'à mon son, la souffle blanc du Midas sur mon corps amont.
Et en français, la lune caresse ma fourrure, s'installe comme du blanc dans mes yeux noirs. J'enfouis mon nez dans ses rayons, les avalant comme du miel épais, jusqu'à ce que je sens le souffle blanc de Midas sur mon corps.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how it is supposed to be done. I hope you got all of that. If not, just refer to the translation. Guys, thanks so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, James.
If you don't have any plans for this weekend, never fear. To fill the window in your cultural schedule, here's just a few of the festivals, fairs, exhibits and performances coming soon to spots near you. To learn more about these and other events in Louisiana, keep your eyes peeled for a copy of Country Roads magazine. And while we're at it, LPB's Art Rocks website features an archive of previous episodes, so to see any episode again, just log on to lpb.org. Here's an opportunity to hear from one of the world's finest classical musicians. For Behzad Abduraimov, it took a lifetime of practice to establish his reputation as a highly sought-after concert pianist. And although he now calls Kansas City home, Abduraimov started life in faraway Uzbekistan. Here, he talks about his journey and what it's like not only adjusting to a new country, but to musical fame as well.
Welcome to the office of Behzad Abduraimov. On this day in May of 2015, it's in the century-old Folly Theater, where he's practicing for his Kansas City solo debut. Weeks before, he was filling concert halls in Finland and Spain. His meteoric rise started after he won the London International Piano Competition in 2011. Behzad's musical journey has been guided by a series of teachers.
I was almost 6 years old when my mother started teaching me all the basics, rhythms, notes, etc. And then I think when I turned 6, she took me into my first piano teacher.
That was the late, legendary Tamara Popovich, who's credited with helping propel dozens of young pianists to the international stage.
He had studied with a broad range of teachers who had brought together the Russian school, the Germanic Austrian tradition, the Italian tradition, American Juilliard tradition.
So when Stanislav decided to eschew the concert circuit for the rewards of teaching, he opted to remain in Kansas City and sell the idea of building a world-class boutique music program to Park University. The International Center for Music, or ICM, was developed to offer elite instruction to promising young players.
He has everything. He's a very special talent. It was obvious from the beginning.
2. Now 3.
One of the most important values of him as a musician is very, very high tune sensitivity to the sound. He is also humble in what he does, in a good sense, I mean, how he treats the musical text.
I came to Kansas City being very young, only 16 years old.
But even after a critically acclaimed debut at Carnegie Hall and playing with symphonies and philharmonics across the globe, there's still one audience that causes him some trepidation.
You know, they say the most difficult place to play is home. It's a lot of pressure in a good way, of course.
Behzad practices in a very unique way. He will often do snippets of different pieces sort of in random order, and he will play a certain passage that he's concerned about. He'll come back to it, and then he'll go on to something else, and then he'll come back to that passage. He has this sound and this charisma, and it's hard to put a pinpoint. It's not just sound, it's not just hugeness of crass volume. It's really about a sort of an inner fire.
For me, the most intimate moment, when you play really quiet or soft or intimate places, and then there is not even a single sound or any cough or anything, and people are just so focused. You have them on hook, and it's fantastic. My humble desire is to bring all the great music of great composers to the audience and hopefully touch their souls.
From the visual to the performing arts, cowboys, horses, the icons of the American West. These are the themes you see reflected in the artwork of Harold Holden. Now, the people of Holden's home state of Oklahoma are showing their gratitude for this artist's lifetime of devotion to his work.
Okay. He'll go get him.
Harold T. Holden, or H, as most of us know him,
Come on!
comes from a family of talented inventors and engineers. But he was the first to become a professional fine artist.
Come on!
He is a Prix de West artist, and he's the current sculptor of our beautiful Wrangler Award.
That horse right there, that sorrel horse, took him to Vegas years ago. Surprisingly, he did pretty good. The guy riding him didn't.
His art is on exhibit in the Oklahoma State Capitol, in addition to a number of museums across this great country of ours.
Get him, Hank.
Help us congratulate the next inductee into the Hall of Great Westerners, a man I am proud to call my friend, Harold T. H. Holden.
Unbelievable.
Harold T. Holden is looking for measurements for his next project.
Did you look up here?
No. Oh, no. Ooh, yeah. There's a horse's head. So from here down to here's a head and a half, and that's a head. And there, a head from top of the knee.
This is the studio where H has created most of the paintings and sculptures over the past 45 years that earned him a place in the National Hall of Great Westerners. He's the first Oklahoma artist to ever receive such an honor. H began his artistic career in the 70s with paintings of the West, but in the 80s, he sculpted his first monument. The response put him on the artistic map.
Did my first monument in 86. It's in Enid, it's called Boomer. It's a guy making the run, horseback. And I came up with what everybody said was a good piece. It's got a horse, all four legs off the ground, and he's turning too. And I don't think I have another one at a horse going like warp speed. I used to have signs from Tulsa over to one side of the state to the other side with the silhouette of Boomer.
Boomer even became a stamp for the U.S. Postal Service.
I did three or four different little paintings and then let them pick. And that's the one they picked. I was behind Elvis, though, on stamps. I was 93 million, and he was 100 million.
Holden's sculpting career took off nearly as fast as Boomer, at warp speed.
I know that sculpture, most of the large stuff you see is smooth, like Paul Moore's, all smooth. But I never sculpted it smooth, so I use tools that have teeth on them, and for some reason it seems like it blends for me better when I use a tooth tool, and I don't know, that's just the way I work. It looks to me like, like Paul does all his smooth. I said, gosh, that seems like a lot of extra work to have it all just smooth, but that's the way they used to do it. So. Yeah, it had the nameplate pried off of it. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want to be part of the West. It's a lot of history, but it's different than all the rest of anywhere in the world.
Holden comes from a line of artists and cowboys. The grit of the West runs through his veins, so it's little wonder that he would recreate the era through his art with such excellence that in April of 2017, he'd end up on a stage in front of America's Western notables to be inducted into the Hall of Great Westerners.
It's an honor, just honor to receive this award. It seems a little strange to be receiving one of my own sculptures here. Or I should tell you what RW calls them as figurines. But I'll take it.
There comes a time when every cowboy has to pull up on the reins a little. Holden says he only has one more sculpture in him. A lung transplant in 2010 has made the work a little harder than it used to be, but he's not calling it quits just yet.
I'm not a retiring. I don't think art is a retiring, where people retire fine art. As long as you could paint, or even sculpt. Some people do. They just quit altogether. But I can't imagine if you do it most of your life, what you can do, just sit around.
H will return to his first love, painting, here in the same studio he's worked in for decades at the end of a gravel road in the wide open land outside of Enid, Oklahoma. A studio filled with the spirit of a great American Westerner.
Returning home now for this week's Louisiana Treasure. You cannot walk past the Hotel Bentley in downtown Alexandria without doing a double take at the grandeur of this central Louisiana landmark. And as hotel employee Scott Labierte explains, that was a primary goal for the man who built the hotel more than 100 years ago.
Construction of the Hotel Bentley began on April 3rd, 1907. That's when Joseph Bentley purchased the land for roughly $40,000. The hotel was built using a lot of local materials as well as products that were imported, more specifically from Italy. The grand lobby boasts a tile floor of mosaics. The bulk of that, about 95% of that tile mosaic, was brought in and hand-laid by an artisan. A lot of the structure that supports the Hotel Bentley is limestone, which was drafted from the Red River here in central Louisiana. The reason that we reside in what's called Rapides Parish is because the Red River had very severe limestone bases, which created rapids through the central Louisiana area. After excavation of that limestone, which was used here for the Hotel Bentley, the rapids kind of diminished, so a little history for central Louisiana. Now, the limestone is used for 675 structural support piles that drive over 30 feet into the earth. Joseph Bentley, whom was a timberman scouting land here in central Louisiana for his forestry company, he was visiting from Pennsylvania. After a long day work, he went to check in to an adjacent property here in town, and they denied him service. They simply said, "Oh, sorry sir, blue-collar worker, you're not dressed appropriate to stay on our property." So his next step was then to purchase land here in central Louisiana and build what is the finest hotel this side of the Mississippi River. From the mosaic tile floor imported from Italy to all of the products, the horsehair plaster, the gold leafing, he was ambitious and wanted to build the finest hotel in order to, what we think, put that adjacent hotel out of business. The style of the hotel is called Beau Art, which means new art. It does resemble a little bit of the Renaissance Nuevo technique as well. So you'll see lots of fruit, you'll see lots of banners and scrolls. The Hotel Bentley was actually modeled after a property in Little Rock, Arkansas. The architect G.O.R. Mann was one of the world's top producers of luxury hotels. He was the architect for this project as well. There were some locals sourced for the building of the property. However, craftsmen and artisans of the world were brought here to construct the property. The Hotel Bentley here in Alexandria has lots of luxuries, specifically the furnishings and the construction. Now, it has been restored to its original state and holds a preservation award here with the Central Louisiana Historical Society. You've got a lot of marble and hard surface in the lobby as well as the remainder of the property. Some interesting facts about the Hotel Bentley: when it was constructed and completed in 1908, it had its very own power plant in-house. Your city infrastructure wasn't 100% complete. It did have indoor, in-room plumbing, which was a very, very, very marvelous feat given the 1908 era. The colors that are in the lobby are not original to the 1908 construction. The dome is original, however, the painting inside is not original. That was painted by one of the previous ownerships. The Hotel Bentley was originally constructed with a flat 100 sleeping rooms. That was the 1908 era. In the 30s, early 40s, the hotel underwent a renovation which added the 5th through 8th floor portion, which is located on Jackson and 3rd Street. That brought the property up to an additional 200 rooms. 1941, 1942-ish, you had General Patton, Lieutenant Omar Bradley, Eisenhower, Second Lieutenant Henry Kissinger, who stayed here in the property and actually did some planning of the Louisiana maneuvers. Along with the historical figures, past and present, we've also had quite a few celebrities stay with us, including John Wayne, Roy Rogers, Faith Ford, and even Vanessa Williams.
And that's going to do it for this edition of Art Rocks. But remember, art lover, you can always watch episodes of the show at lpb.org/artrocks. And if that's not enough for you, Country Roads Magazine is a great resource for enriching your cultural life with art, cuisine, escapes and events all across the state. So until next week, I've been James Fox Smith, and thank you for watching.